hands of time have a way of slowly erasing our history. If it's not preserved, we lose track of our roots, our heritage, and the very essence of who we are. The Reined cow horse of today is one of the greatest athletes in the equine world, but we must not forget its humble beginnings, or the men and women who have been so instrumental in breeding, training, and building the Reined Cow Horse Association of today. In order to recognize and honor the people who have been the foundation of our association, the NRCHA created the Hall of Fame. Bobby Ingersoll, Ralph and Mickey Gregg, and Greg Ward were inducted in 1996, followed by Johnny Brazil in 1997 and Don Dodge in 98. In 2000, Tony Amaral, Ray Hackworth, Harry Rose, and Frank Crew were inducted, and in 2001, Ronnie Richards, Ken Sutton, Jimmy Williams, and Clyde Kennedy joined this elite group. Barbara Worth, Lola Galley, and Pat Haberns were entered in 2002. And in 2003, it was Dick Deller, George Rose, and the first horse to be inducted, Villanick. Stan Fonson, Carol Rose, Smokey Pritchett, and Les Vogt were inducted in 2004. And in 2005, Don Murphy, Skip Brown, and King Fritz were also welcomed in. 2006 saw the addition of Bob Knudsen, Jim Rozier, Doug Williamson, and Royal Cutter. And in 2007, welcomed Jim Paul, Kenny Pugh, Dwayne Pettibone, Smoke Spell, and the introduction of the newly formed Hall of Merit, inducting Mr. Jim Putnam. In 2008, Matt Day entered the Hall of Merit, and Benny Gatrone, Ken Wold, and Mona Lisa were added to the Hall of Fame. In 2009, the Hall of Fame welcomed Ted Robinson, Pat Hubbard, Smoke'em Oak, and Jernigan Pete, and John Semper was inducted into the Hall of Merit. In 2010, Terry Ratto entered the Hall of Merit, and Carl Gould, Tommy Sondroff, and Czech Sanik were welcomed into the Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we pay tribute to all of these past inductees as we welcome 3 more names into this exclusive group. Welcome to the National Reined Cow Horse Association's Hall of Fame.
Well, you know, the old-timers all say you get one good horse in your lifetime, you know, and as I was going on with her colts, I'm thinking, you know, I guess that's mine.
Bonnie Smoke was an exceptional athlete who turned into an even better producer. She excelled in rein cow horse and cutting, but it was when her offspring started to show that she truly proved herself. Bonnie Smoke could quite possibly be the greatest producer of aged event finalists in the rein cow horse industry. Smokey Pritchett was interested in purchasing a daughter of Mr. Gunsmoke, and in 1982 he attended a sale at the Rap Ranch where several fillies were being sold.
And Glenn Drake of Big D Blankets had 3 Gunsmoke fillies in the sale, so I thought we'd go down there and look and see, and one happened to be a paint mare, and Norm Hudson had started all 3 of the fillies for Glenn Drake, and he told me the paint mare had by far the most stability, and he'd had him on cows a few times and ridden them about 60 days, and she was going to be a lot cheaper than the quarter horses.
Smokey now had his Gunsmoke, and when he got her home, she was exactly as they had described.
She was wild, and she was bronchi, like they told me, and very, very hot, but an extremely great athlete.
When the Snaffle Bit Futurity rolled around, it was the first time she'd been shown. She was a great athlete, but Smokey knew he would have his hands full.
So that was the first time shown, and the crowd, the announcer, everything set her on fire. So the fellow that worked for me at the time, Bob, he stayed up for the sale the night before the finals and held her in the sale ring there, well, in the arena at Reno, and during the sale, and held her there the whole sale, trying to get her used to all the noise and commotion, and it helped a little bit, but
Bonnie Smoke ended up 5th at the 1984 Futurity, much to the delight of Smokey and his two daughters, Jody and Kelly. Smokey had originally bought Bonnie Smoke with a partner, but not long after bought him out, and he gave that share to his daughters so they could have a start in the horse business. Not long after the Futurity, Smokey broke his arm. His old friend Bobby Ingersoll called him up to see if he could help.
Bobby Ingersoll called up and he said, you know, I know you want to keep your mare going. You've got they called it the maturity in those days, the Derby coming up and that. And he said, I'll ride her for you while you're laid up. And I said, okay. And he calls me up and he says, damn, this mare's crazy, you know.
Bonnie Smoke was the highest-scoring horse going into the finals at the Idaho Reined Cow Horse Futurity, and then went to the Montana Futurity, where she was the Open Champion. As a 4-year-old, she was 3rd at the California RCHA Maturity, and then started cutting. She won a cutting derby in Oregon, a paint cutting derby, and was then retired from the show pen. Bonnie Smoke was a daughter of the great Mr. Gunsmoke, and was out of the paint mare Roper's Calcutta, which was another reason Smokey had liked her. Roper's Calcutta had been shown both in the non-pro and open, winning Salinas, the Cow Palace, and was a 2-time paint working cow horse world champion. Bonnie Smoke was exceptionally bred and was about to become the cornerstone of Smokey's breeding and training business.
I've had a lot of horses through the years, but she's been the one big producer, and like I say, I'm never was into paints, but Bonnie Smoke was, you know, if she'd have been purple, she was a great horse. She just happened to be, you know, she's one of those, whether you call him a freak, an outstanding individual or whatever, but she was an outstanding athlete herself and then turned in to be a greater producer than she was herself.
Her first of 11 foals hit the ground in 1988, and his name was Bonnie's Kid. Bonnie's Kid proved right off the bat that his dam would be a producer when he took 3rd place at the Snaffle Bit Futurity and followed that up with a reserve championship at the NRCHA Stallion Stakes. He won the bridle class twice at the Reno Championship Snaffle Bit Futurity and won the 2 rein at the NRCHA Snaffle Bit Futurity. Freckle-Faced Clyde followed in 1989 and was the first of 3 offspring that would take the Open Championship at the NRCHA Stallion Stakes. Like Bonnie's Kid, he was sired by Freckle-Faced Kid and would also win the Hackamore class at the Salinas Rodeo, the bridle class at the Stallion Stakes, and many more. In 1991, Freckle-Faced Smoke arrived and started his career by taking the Reserve Open Championship at the NRCHA Snaffle Bit Futurity. He also became Bonnie Smoke's 2nd offspring to take the Open Championship at the Stallion Stakes and was her first to win the NRCHA 4-year-old Maturity, which is now the Derby. Freckle-Faced Smoke was also the first horse to take back-to-back Open Hackamore Championships at the Snaffle Bit Futurity in 1995 and 96. Bonnie Lena had many championships and reserve championships, and then, sired by SMF Lena's Award, came Bonnie Stranger, who became her 3rd NRCHA Stallion Stakes Open champion. He was an APHA World Champion Senior Cutting Stallion, took many championships in both the bridle and hackamore, and was a World's Greatest Horseman finalist. Bonnie Smart Chick by Smart Chickolina, foaled in 2000, was an open finalist at the NRCHA Futurity, Stallion Stakes, and Derby. He eventually moved into becoming a reiner, where he won many championships. Her last foal to arrive was in 2004 and was named Bonnie Smart Peppy. He was an open finalist at the Snaffle Bit Futurity and tied for 4th in the Intermediate. He was co-reserve champion at the National Stock Horse Association Futurity, a Stallion Stakes reserve champion, and a Hackamore Classic finalist. This amazing produce record quite possibly makes Bonnie Smoke the greatest producer of aged event finalists in the history of the NRCHA.
She was just a little old tiny 700-pound thing when we got her, you know, and didn't look like much. And later on in years, she became a big stout mare. But just, like I say, it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing that nearly everything that she produced went on and was not just a good horse. They achieved greatness at one point or another, you know. And it's really something you probably never come across again.
For Smokey and his two daughters, Jody and Kelly, Bonnie Smoke is more than just a great performer and producer. She was the foundation they built much of their success upon, but most importantly, was a true friend. Bonnie Smoke contracted Cushing's disease and was put down in 2007. She now rests at the Ward Ranch in the company of other great horses from our past.
Basically ended up buying her from my girls, and she became the family horse, and just was, always will be, I guess. Yeah.
We welcome Bonnie Smoke to the National Rein Cow Horse Association's Hall of Fame. In 2007, the NRCHA formed the Hall of Merit in order to honor and recognize members who have contributed greatly to the association through the use of their business skills. Tonight, we welcome and thank Mr. Howard Arenberg. Born in Los Angeles, California, Howard was the oldest of 3 boys, and at a very early age, he started showing everyone what he was truly made of. Howard was first exposed to horses when he was about 8 years old, when he first visited Smoke Tree Stables. He had an immediate love, and his father bought him a horse of his own just a couple years later.
So there I got my first horse, and then I started going to Smoke Tree Stables, and before long I started working there, probably in 8th grade through high school. And the guy that, the foreman of Smoke Tree Stables, an old guy cowboy rodeo guy by the name of Bud Kinnaman, he had a ranch in Colorado. So before long I started spending summers in Colorado, and that was a lot of fun. We would break horses and buck hay.
Howard worked at Smoke Tree Stables all through high school, and after graduation, he headed off to Menlo College. But not wanting to be away from the horses, he took along his stepmother's filly.
And so I brought that horse up there, and I think it was Webb Ranch, and I broke the horse up there, and so he had something to do in my spare time.
Howard worked with the filly, studied, and played baseball at Menlo College, and after 2 years he transferred to USC. Howard's grandfather and father were both in the mattress business, and working in the factory while growing up instilled a strong work ethic in the young Arenberg.
My dad was in the mattress business. His dad had been in the mattress business before that, and I had always worked at the mattress factory as a young kid, through high school, through college. As a matter of fact, when I was at SC going to grad school, I would, early in the morning, I'd go over there, go over to the factory in East LA and run the mattress line for 2-3 hours, and then come back and go to school. So I always worked in the factory, never worked in the office. It wasn't until after I got an MBA from SC that I moved into the office for a couple of months learning that, and then we had a factory in Arizona,
After enlisting in the Naval Air Reserves and graduating from USC, Howard packed his belongings, loaded his horse and dog, and moved to Scottsdale to run their Arizona mattress factory. Howard returned to California several years later, and one afternoon went with a friend up to Les Votes Ranch to look at some horses. This was a day that would greatly impact Howard's life.
And these horses were doing reining patterns. They would go down and slide stop, and then all of a sudden they went down the fence. I had never seen that. I was just a wrangler. What did I know? And they went down the fence, and I said, my gosh, what kind of an event is this? This is unbelievable. And the horses were gorgeous, and you know, they weren't just ranch horses. These were well-bred, beautiful horses. So probably at that time I got hooked on the reined cow horse.
Howard loved the cow horses and the St. Ynez Valley and knew that's where his future would be. At a friend's suggestion, he called Sandy Collier for some lessons, and she happened to also have a house for rent.
So I rented this place from Sandy, this little house from Sandy, and was still living full-time in Redlands. So I would come up on the weekends, and then before long, of course, I had to buy a reined cow horse. Sandy called me and said that there was a horse that was coming to her place that John Jump owned. That Ted Robinson had ridden in the Snaffle Bit Futurity, was a finalist, and then after that it had gone to Scott Weiss to become a cutting horse. And her name was Lady Reminick.
Before long, Howard and some other non-pros from the area decided that they wanted to put on a show in the St. Ynez Valley.
The next thing I knew, Monty Baker and I over our dining room table came up with this idea to have a horse show in the St. Ynez Valley. And then before long, it turned out that we decided to also have the pre-futurity along with it.
Upon presenting the idea for the show to the NRCHA Board of Directors, Howard was asked to join. He soon became treasurer and then started a 4-year stint as president of the NRCHA. While president, Howard had some great horse success. His mare, Lady Reminick, had produced Tangy's Classy Lady, who went on to win the pre-futurity before taking the Reserve Open Championship at the 2000 Snaffle Bit Futurity. Another one of his mares, Miss Reedchecks, had produced a filly named Smart Bunny Lena, who went on to win the 1998 NCHA Classic Challenge Open Championship at the NCHA Derby in Fort Worth. But behind the scenes, the NRCHA had big trouble brewing, and without extreme measures being taken, the association wouldn't survive. After not being able to make the total payout at the 2001 Futurity, Howard stepped in.
So once we realized we couldn't make the payout to Snaffle Bit Futurity, or the total payout, I called John Hopkins up, my controller at Serta Mattress, who's a chartered accountant from England, brilliant man. Everybody knows him around here. He won the President's Award along with Gary and Camille Polite one year. And John and I went in and found out there were really no financials at all, and we had to reconstruct the books. And to make a long story short, we found out that we were $350,000 in debt and owed about $400,000 in accounts payable. And so we put together a spreadsheet, and I called every single vendor and set up a payment schedule, payout schedule with every vendor, and everybody agreed to hang on, and we paid them out over probably about a 5-month period. Told them I would send them a check the first of every month, and if I was going to be a half an hour late, I would give them a call. They all jumped on board, they all agreed, and we paid them all off 100 cents on the dollar.
Determined to help get the association back on stable ground, Howard stepped in as the association's temporary executive director, and along with several other people, physically moved the NRCHA office to Tulare, California. He ran the shows and oversaw the association's day-to-day business, never once drawing a salary. Along with getting the financials in order, one of Howard's main goals was to help get the shows running like a well-oiled machine.
We wanted our shows to run like a Swiss watch. We wanted people that outsiders that come to the events for the first time to say, wow, this is a professionally run show. I want to be involved. Because everybody wants to be associated with the best, with people that know what they're doing.
Howard Arenberg worked tirelessly for the NRCHA in a time of great need. and to this day still serves on the board of directors and has no plans of leaving anytime soon. He's put in a lot of long hours, but is dedicated to helping the association through these tough economic times.
So I'd get up about 5 in the morning, get to my desk, and I guess probably about 10 o'clock at night, would shut the computer down. But everybody was on our side. I mean, there are lots of people that I can thank for chipping in, and nobody ever said no. And we turned the thing around, and it was it was a lot of fun doing it.
Howard truly loves the NRCHA, almost as much as having his wife Dana and their daughter Leanna by his side. While talking with Howard, it's easy to see why he's volunteered so much of his time to the NRCHA.
I love the association. I love the owners, the trainers, the horse flesh, basically the people involved with the association.
Howard, we thank you and welcome you to the NRCHA Hall of Merit.
I was born right here in California, in San Jose, California, and I think when I was around 5 or 6 years old, we moved to the Salinas area. And I believe about a year after that, I think I was 7, my sister and I went to summer camp in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and all we could do is talk about horses when we got back.
The National Reined Cow Horse Association's Hall of Fame welcomes Billy Cochran. After that introduction to horses at summer camp, Billy started riding the schooling horses at the Salinas Rodeo Grounds and eventually met Marvin Roberts Sr. Marvin let Billy ride some of the horses he was training to show, and that was his first exposure to the stock horses. Billy loved it and used every moment he had to learn as much as possible. Billy's parents eventually bought him a horse of his own, and he was off and running.
I went in about every event there was with that horse. I went in stock horse classes and equitation, pleasure, trail, gymkhana. I roped off him. I did everything that you could possibly do with a horse.
It wasn't long before Billy got his hands on his sister's old horse, Peter Pan, and they really clicked. Billy trained him to be a cow horse, and he cleaned up in the junior division. Out of the 14 junior reined cow horse classes offered that year, Billy won 13 of them and was second in the other, easily winning the year-end youth championship. His dominance that year set a record that he still holds to this day, and even as a youth, he showed Peter Pan in the open, giving everyone a run for their money. And right as Billy was graduating from high school, he got a job working for one of the masters, Tony Amaral.
The school year hadn't ended. I went to work for Tony Amaral, and who I'd spent some time with in previous years, probably starting when I was 15. And prior to that, I had the opportunity to spend summers with Greg Ward when I was 13 and 14, 2 summers, and that was a great experience.
Billy learned a tremendous amount from Tony, Greg, and Don Dodge, who at the time was training out of the same barn as Tony Amaral. While working for Greg Ward, Billy had the unique opportunity to be the first person to ride the legendary Philinick in the bridle. Billy was also trusted to ride the great Fizzabar for Don Dodge and Jernigan Peak and Bar D for Johnny Brazil Jr. Unfortunately, Billy was in a serious car accident in his late teens, which made it unable for him to ride for several years. But as he recovered, the horses were first on his mind.
I would give a few lessons, ride a few horses. I finally, about the time I was 22, 23 years old, didn't have enough time to ride the horses I wanted to, give the lessons I wanted to, so I quit all the other, whatever job I was at the time. I think I was driving tractor, spraying insecticides and herbicides. And anyway, I went to full-time training.
Billy made the right decision as he won many bridle and hackamore championships on horses like Close Ricochet, Deuces Take'em, Malbec's Bonnie, Ruby de la Warrior, Sends Me, Sugar Free, and even an Arab called Czar. Billy was a 5-time Snaffle Bit Futurity finalist and was the high-scoring rider down the fence twice.
I just was very, very, very blessed to be able to spend time around and pick up what I could from those great hands.
Billy truly loves the Reined cow horses, but in the mid-'80s he decided to take a shot at the cutting pen.
I found a love for the cutting horse and thought I wanted to try that. And I remember my wife telling me, "Why do you want to beat your head against the wall trying to ride those cutting horses? Learn how to ride those cutting horses. You can win when you show a Reined cow horse. Why would you want to do this?" And I pursued it anyway. And so actually about the mid-'80s, I kind of converted over. It was hard to go to the Reined cow horse shows and the cuttings at the same time, so I ended up doing more cutting and started judging quite a bit of Reined cow horse.
Once again, Billy found success. He trained and rode many great cutters, making the NCHA Futurity Finals in Fort Worth and marking a 2:29. He won the Pacific Coast Cutting Horse Association Classic Challenge on Wild Will Hickory, a horse that he bred and owned. Even though Billy spent the last 20 years mainly riding cutters, he's kept close contact with the Reined cow horse community through judging. Billy's a AAA judge in the NRCHA and has judged the Snaffle Bit Futurity 10 times, along with many other major events. He is also a top-rated judge with the National Cutting Horse Association. Billy never wanted to get far from the cow horses, and he knows why.
Yes, I do. It's because we're all involved with what absolutely I am totally convinced, and I would tell anybody that we're involved with the elite equine athlete that there has ever been and probably ever will be.
And for Billy, the horses have been so much more than a business. They're the core of who he is.
They've encompassed my life, and it's a passion that only those that I suppose that have been totally involved and with it that they can understand that it's just it's a way of life.
Billy served on the board of directors, won many championships in both the Reined cow horse and cutting arenas. He's a prominent judge and loves to help people with their horses. Billy has one daughter named Amy and 2 wonderful grandsons, Dylan and Ian. For Billy, an induction into the Hall of Fame is an honor he will always cherish.
You know, it just about brings tears to my eyes to think that I'm going to be connected and linked with those greats, because they've just been my heroes. You know, it's kind of choking me up, just you asking me right now. It overwhelms me that I would be included in that group. It's the greatest honor that I can imagine.
Billy Cochran, welcome to the National Reined Cow Horse Association's Hall of Fame. Howard Arenberg, Bonnie Smoke, and Billy Cochran, the National Reined Cow Horse Association thanks you for all you've done and welcomes you to the Hall of Merit and the Hall of Fame.